I'll call the Lewiston City Council special meeting to order at the time and place is advertised. Our next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand and join us in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, everyone, for your attendance here today. We do have Councilor Klein. There she is. We have Councilor Klein participating remotely. Council President Kleberg is not able to join us today. And then Councilor Wright should be here soon, but we do have a quorum, so we're going to continue to move forward in our business. Next item, agenda item 3, discussion items. Please note that identifying an item as an action item does not require the City Council to vote on that item. Item A is the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, AFSCME, Local 1124 Collective Labor Agreement. This is an action item. And we have our Human Resources Director, Nikki Province, here today. Who's going to help us as we walk through this, Council. You were provided a copy of that previously, and hopefully you had a chance to review that. We did this 3 years ago before we entered into negotiations. You had a chance to review the contract and ask questions, and then also make a decision, affirmative decision or not, to enter into negotiations with them. So this is the first meeting we're required, and I think we will give notice by next Monday of our decision, but this is an opportunity to discuss this contract in public and any concerns or questions you may have before we make that decision. So with that, Nikki, can you kick us off?
Yeah, sure.
With anything, and then Council, if not, Councilor Klein, can you hear us okay? Okay.
Yeah, I can now.
Thank you, Councilor. Then I would turn it over to you, then, Director Province.
Nikki Province, HR Director. I really don't have anything additional to add. I thought the mayor summarized it, that as we did 3 years ago, we're coming in front of council to determine whether you want to direct staff to enter into negotiations with the AFSCME collective bargaining group. Their contract does say that we'll start negotiations on or around April 1st, which is why we're bringing it to you now, so that you can give staff direction on what you'd like to do.
Okay. Director, can you just remind the council what the current position is of the AFSCME group with the City of Lewiston? There are how many positions that are covered under this contract, and how many currently are members of the AFSCME group, and anything else that might be pending?
Yeah, so we have approximately 72 positions that are recognized under the AFSCME group. We have 70 filled right now. We have 30 dues-paying members as of, I think, last payroll. They are a makeup of all different types of positions. We've got park technicians, street technicians, water, wastewater operators, custodians. We've got our facilities and park technicians, if I haven't already said that one. And so it's made up of a variety of different positions within the city.
Thank you, Nikki. Councilors, any questions for Director Province? Councilor Spickelmeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. So Director, you mentioned at the last meeting, so then how many are not covered?
Well, they all fall within the collective bargaining agreement, but only 30 are paying dues towards the AFSCME.
City employees.
City employees. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's 70 collectively that we recognize as part of the union. There's 30 that are dues paying members.
Not in the union. Not covered by the union.
They're covered by the contract, but they're not paying dues towards AFSCME collective bargaining union.
So, thank you, Councilor. Well, maybe you could just tell the councilor approximately how many employees there are across the city, and then what the memberships are for each of the three bargaining groups and the non-reps. Maybe that would help him.
Yeah, so you have, I think, we pulled the numbers. I think you have 60-some in police and fire. They have almost 100% dues-paying membership. And then you have the,
So 60 in police, 60 in fire, 120.
yeah, 64, 65 in each one. And then you have the 70 with AFSCME that we recognize as falling under the collective bargaining agreement. And, about 50% or less of their employees pay dues towards that AFSCME. And then our non-represented, I think, included, I want to say like 130 some non-represented employees who don't pay dues, they just fall under the personnel policy.
Trying to remember when we were talking about this in our last meeting, we kind of talked about the weight not really being even amongst all groups that are a part of the AFSCME organization. I know organization is not the right word, but the contract. How many things are repeated in the employee handbook that we're already providing, but are also like kind of a repeat in this contract? And then what things are not all employees being able to take benefit in?
Well, I think within the AFSCME contract, you have different certifications that, like, say, water, wastewater, or even mechanics would get, where your parks, your facilities, custodians wouldn't get those certification pays. You may have some positions that would be on standby or call out that may get more overtime, whereas like your, parks facility custodian may not need to be on standby or receive call out. Your holidays, you have different positions that may work on a holiday where they would maybe earn double or triple time on a holiday or Sunday, where you have other positions that wouldn't, just by the nature of their job, would not receive those benefits, which I think is what you're talking about. There are some crossover within the personnel policy, such as, I think the sick leave and vacation are similar. Holidays differ because they get paid double or triple on days where a personnel policy wouldn't apply. Your like workers' comp, family medical leave, those would be very similar to each other. One thing they negotiate is wages, and so they have their own pay scale, whereas non-represented have their own pay scale and the other unions have their own pay scale. I'm sure I'm missing things because they're different. I know that the AFSCME contract contains some safety, like boot allowance or safety glasses or high-vis wear, where we don't specifically address that in the personnel policy, but we provide for it. Our risk manager would most certainly want those things. I'm trying to think if there's anything. And I know I sent you guys the contract and the personnel policy to review, coordinating with some of you. Another difference would be the work week. AFSCME currently collects overtime, including all vacation, sick leave, comp time, holiday is included in their 40-hour work week, whereas the personnel policy would say that you don't earn overtime until 40 hours actually worked. So that would be a difference between the two. Think of anything else. Our personnel policy is at will. Theirs specifically defines for cause and a process for grievance, which would differ from the personnel policy or non-represented. I think that, I can't recall anything else.
Cert pays maybe.
Yeah, cert pays.
Overtimes on Sundays, holidays, things like that are different.
Yeah. Like our water wastewater operators receive 50-cent certification pay up to 4 based on their certifications they receive. Mechanics receive 50 cents, I think up to 2. So that's not defined in our personnel policy because it's specific to just those groups. So I think the financial factor probably differs.
So under their pay raises, it's the certifications and their normal step increases, right?
Yeah, they've also bargained a COLA, a cost of living increase. It's a minimum of 1%, maximum 2.5% is in the current contract. Whereas non-represented usually follow the same. We've tried to make it fair where everybody's receiving the same COLA, so non-represented usually receive the same of what the unions get. But yeah, they have an annual step increase up to the max. They have a certain percentage between each step. I think it's approximately 3%. So. That's fine.
Okay. So I guess I just explained why we're having this. For me, I just wanted to bring those that are affected by this into this meeting. And so to make sure that we have a contract that is fair for everyone that is paying into that contract. So really what I'm wondering is why is there such a low percentage paying into this union? And what can we do to either increase that, or is there a better way we should be doing this? This isn't, for speaking on me, this wasn't me trying to get rid of this contract or have an idea of get rid of any benefits. I just want to make sure everyone that's getting this has a fair benefit. And so that was the purpose of coming here. So I don't know if it's helpful to have feedback of why we're not getting a high turnout. I mean, I want to make this meeting beneficial, so.
I think this was a point of discussion last time too. And it's really up to the union to speak on that because we don't advocate for people to enroll. That's really unions to speak to their members and coordinate through them enrolling and paying dues. The dues are determined by the WCCCE, which is an entity of that, and we just deduct what we're told. So as far as the union participation, we don't, as a city, don't have much responsibility in that. So did you want like a representative to speak to why they think, or?
I think it'd be beneficial. I mean, we're not here to hear from them.
Yeah.
Being here.
Ryan or Pat or Laura, who wants to speak? Oh, yeah.
Hello, I'm Laura Hanson.
Oh,
No, I want to hear from our employees. Yeah.
I was not planning on going first, but thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and then, if you have the opportunity to stand up, the microphones are these great things ahead of us, so we just have to remember to project our voice so that those listening at home can hear what you have to say. And then
I'm pretty loud, I'm not super loud.
pretty loudly, clearly, so thank you.
My name's Ryan Riza. I am currently the president of our ASME Technicians Union. To answer your question in a nutshell, Idaho is a right-to-work state. So the benefits of a few benefit many. Whether you pay or not, nobody's forced to join a union. And I'm totally for that. I think that's great. I, as a president, do not put pressure on any employee to join a union. Our union, the police union, the fire union, if they're a fireman or a police officer. That's not our goal. Our goal is to show the benefit of being a union member, not what it does for the individual, not what it does for me or many of my colleagues, but what it does for us as a group. It's a long-standing tradition in the city of Lewiston, 40-plus years, I believe, long before my time. Lewiston itself is a very union historic town. Most people here's fathers or grandfathers, mothers were part of some kind of a union, a labor union at some point. Being a right-to-work state, I come from a right-to-work state in Wyoming. We did not have the union background that a lot of Idaho communities do. We have a lot of industry, and a lot of people do work
for companies outside of the state of Wyoming, so there is a lot of union in the state, but there's no state organized unions. Idaho was unique when I came here. One of the reasons I chose to come to work here 11 years ago was that there was a labor union. I'd never had that opportunity in my life. I wasn't pro-union or anti-union. I didn't really have a feeling, but I thought, what's a good thing? I mean, that's got to be a good thing. And it has been a good thing. I joined as soon as I could. Never thought I'd be in this position, but here I am. Most of us who serve on the executive board never thought they would be in that position. We are not compensated in any way. Our union does not provide any kind of pension plan. I mean, we hear a lot of things about these big, powerful unions. Our union exists solely for public service workers. So everybody benefits by, and we actually, I know I don't have it on our record, but we actually have 5 new members I just mailed in last week and 4 more mailing in this week. So again, nobody's being pressured. People are just starting to see some benefits or some things that they maybe stand to lose if they aren't part of the union. I like to think that the union, as small as we are, we do sort of, in my experience, we kind of dictate, if we establish something within our contract, the rest of the city sort of tends to follow. Nikki said it's nice to kind of be fair, cost of living being something that's, none of the non-represented people, us union people call them the supervisors, none of them are going to get a 6% cost of living raise while we sit back and get a 2%. It's kind of a fair playing field that way. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I really do. I think it's great for recruitment and retention. I know a lot of people who, I shouldn't say a lot, I know a handful of people who have looked to go to work elsewhere. And one of the things that kept them here was the fact that they were part of a collective bargaining agreement or a collective bargaining group. Again, it attracted me to come here, 13 hours from my home, pack up and start a new life. I've worked for municipal governments for 27 years. So that seemed like a good opportunity. There are many reasons to come to work for the city of Lewiston, but that was a nice little cherry on top of the pie. But to answer your question, we try to recruit, we don't try to pressure. We don't guilt people. I mean, we might have one-on-one jokingly, but everybody knows what they're in for. All right, you're either paying in or you're getting a freebie. But either way, you're benefiting. All right, I mean, when we collectively bargained to raise our safety boot policy from $125, which you could even buy safety boots at Walmart at the time for $125, and we bumped it up to $175. I'm here to say that was a long time ago, and that's no longer even effective anymore. If you go to North 40 and try to buy a $175 pair of safety boots, they don't exist. But 30 or 40 people got that through on our contract, and everybody in the city was then able to go out and buy decent shoes at a local retailer, not have to buy them online, things like that. That's a simple, fairly inexpensive example, but my boss was able to buy $175 boots just like I was at that point. Again, the level playing field, I think, is a huge factor for us. To summarize, we would love to have 80 or 90% participation. I don't think it's as ingrained in the public works sector and in the technician sector as it is, say, with the Fraternal Order of Police and the police department or the firemen's union. We all know that those are good, strong, well-represented unions. There was a time where our technicians union was better represented. Old school guys, they retire, younger people come in. Union benefits don't put food on the table for your kids. We understand that. But people soon figure out that union benefits do help in their overall careers. So that's why we're here. We're here obviously in numbers that I never expected, but this is a good turnout. I think it's a good indication that these people take it pretty seriously. So that's why we're here. And Mayor, with your permission, can Laura, our representative, speak?
Ryan, let's
Yes.
see if anyone else has, any other counselors have questions.
Oh, yeah.
Counselor Speckelmeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. So as you're aware, on the council, we're always pressured to reduce the costs and expenditures within the city. So we have to look at everything that we approve or go forward. So, I mean, is there something you can tell me that would push me towards voting to go into negotiations? And what am I gonna gain by us going into negotiations with your union?
What are you going to gain as a citizen or as a council member?
The city as a whole.
The city gains a continued good work environment, a continued good work relationship with their body. Most of the technicians here, Nikki laid it out pretty well. Where everybody else is at home, watching TV and sleeping, there's a handful of us out here who keep this place running every day, 365 days a year. In some of our situations, mine included, 364 days a year, there is somebody at work. Not 24 hours a day, but 6 months out of the year, 24 hours a day. On call, 24/7, 365 days a year. Now, there are a lot of people who aren't required to do that, and that's fine. I mean, the city also operates by having Monday through Friday personnel, obviously. That's very important. It's the sight unseen stuff that a lot of times council members, and I've dealt with councils a long time, they don't always get to see. They don't see it. They see it on the front page of the newspaper. They just don't get to see it on a daily basis. We live it on a daily basis. I don't think this city costs, or this union, our collective group, costs the city any more money. I mean, we aren't out there asking for everything under the sun. We ask to maintain what we have. That's usually our goal, to maintain. No, nobody here is getting rich. Nobody signed up to get rich. We're all public servants. But I know I started in this business years ago. My dad was a cop for 34 years. I started in this business, A, to serve the public, and B, because I knew that benefits are what mattered. Even as a young man raising little kids, I needed health care. I needed a retirement. I hoped for a retirement. Like many, I left, went to the oil field, made a lot of money, hated it, and left. And what did I return to? I returned to public service for a lot less money. So I don't think this union, I mean, we can have arguments all day. I'm not an accountant. The accountants that do their job, it's a very important job. And I understand the bean counting, I do. But I don't think this union costs the city any money. I think it's a benefit I know it's a benefit to the citizens. And I think it's a benefit to the organization. And I think most people here would agree with that. So, good question. I hope that kind of answers it.
Thanks.
All right.
What is the biggest, you're going to speak for people, I understand. You're speaking for your union, so.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
What would you say, the biggest concern with just going into with the regular employees and being not representative? Do we feel like that they're not going to get the benefits that they're trying to get, and this gives them more of a bargaining power, or what's the concern that we're not? Because we obviously are non-representative people. We're trying to do our best to make sure that they get fairly treated as well, and they're getting benefits.
Correct.
And so is the concern that if we didn't have this union, that you guys would not be getting the same benefit that you have if we just worked into the employee?
To be honest with you, yes, we do. With all respect to our current mayor, now that we have a strong mayor-type government, we never know who's coming up next, what their agenda is, what their goal is. So yeah, it's a very real reality for us to wake up one day and say, oh, look, everybody's getting a 20% pay cut, or everybody's getting, the retirement is being canceled. I mean, those are realities that happen. They do happen. They happen in the private sector quite often. I've lost 2 pensions in my life overnight. Nor I was not part of a union in either of those situations. But But yeah, those are real concerns for everyone. That's real concerns for anybody who goes to work at any job. You know, what can be taken away from you for no reason other than it's somebody's plan or somebody's vision. Yeah, there's security. Those of us who pay union dues, those of us who don't pay union dues, understand that security. Just in a right to work state, they don't have to pay to benefit. Those of us who do pay dues, you know, that's the question that should be asked. Why do you 35 people pay dues for everybody? Well, it's that important to us, to keep that sense of security, to keep that relationship going with the administration. No matter who comes in and who changes, you know, what seats change, councils change all the time. I mean, you know, that's always been kind of the wild card, is who's gonna be on the council next, you know? And my dealings with council, the collective body is usually better than one person, right, to make good decisions for everyone. But you guys, you know, you have to represent your constituents and the people in the city. It's not that far from us, because that's who we work for. We don't work for the city, we work for those people who pay taxes. Our job, you know, is usually a pretty thankless job, and none of us care. I mean, we don't care, that's not why we're in this, you know. We're in this to, you know, make a decent living and hopefully have some retirement and some health care. And, yeah, that security blanket's pretty important for us. So.
I will admit, obviously, at where my job is, we don't have every 4 years a possible different leadership coming in and making decisions. So in my mind, I didn't consider that you guys probably would have that fear of having a new council coming in with different agendas or different thoughts, and then you kind of have to, they can change the employee handbook, they own that, and they have the, right to, so.
Sure.
I appreciate that perspective, because that is a really good perspective to bring into when we're considering this, so.
And CEOs change, I mean, you know, board of directors change in the public sector, I mean, that does happen. You know, I'm very pro-union, so I don't think unions ever hurt an organization. I think sometimes they butt heads, right, Nikki? Sometimes we butt heads. But at the end of the day, everybody goes home satisfied, and good work continues to get done. You know, I'm in no position to spend or save the city any money. I do my job, I collect my paycheck, and I go home. But I'm a frugal person. I'm not out there, you know, trying to waste the city's money. That doesn't behoove me or any of these employees to waste the city's, you know, resources. I mean, most of those resources are what we need to get home safely every night, you know? We aren't any different than anybody else, other than, you know, a lot of us are working in the middle of the night, or, you know, when streets are flooded because of water breaks, or when it's snowing for 4 days in a row and the street department hasn't been home in 48 hours. I mean, you know, those are the realities out there that happen every time the rest of us get up and just go to work in the morning. You know, those things are going on behind the scenes. And, you know, to me, it's very important. I mean, we're public servants, and that's number one. We just like to have the tools and a little bit of security to remain doing that. So, good question. So, anybody else?
Yeah,
Councilor Wright.
thank you. So, one of the things with the union structure in the way these departments are structured is there's very different areas of the workforce, very different types of jobs and duties, but they're all under the same blanket of rules. And some of these rules may make a lot of sense for one department, but could cause another area to be, I guess, not as easy to recruit in with that same set of rules. So that's one piece that concerns me, is it could stagnate one area but help another.
Valid point. The same argument could be made for the personnel policy. Matter of fact, it's a much larger document covering a much, much broader range of employees. I mean, you know, our union covers technicians. You know, if they got safety vests on and steel-toed boots, chances are they're eligible for our union. If they work at City Hall and they're in finance or they're in payroll, they could have a union, but they wouldn't be in our union. So yes, there are different needs in different departments. Nikki touched on that. They are very different needs. Some of us have to be on call. It's just part of our job description. We have to be on call. Others would never be expected to be on call. And if they are called in for an emergency, they're paid just like a union member on call. They aren't paid for standby, somebody who's not going out of town on the weekend because they have to be by their phone. That's somebody who's on call. When that phone rings, they have to respond. Other people, if they pick up their phone, they may have to respond. They aren't expected to pick up their phone. But, I mean, really, the departments are vast. I don't know the first thing about taking care of greenery at our parks. But the parks guys don't know the first thing about running the water plant. So, yeah, it's vast. City Hall doesn't know the first thing about, plowing streets in the winter. But please don't put any city streets employees down at City Hall. Or we're gonna have a mess, all right? We all have our respective positions. I've, in my 11 years in the union and my 6 years as president, I've never had one group come up and say, this collective bargaining agreement is not fair to our department. We try to be fair. We've gone to bat for one person in one department. We've gone to bat for entire departments. We've gone to bat for entire public works group, entire parks group. So I like to think that our when we do come to an agreement on a collective bargaining agreement, after we have our negotiations, our e-board is quite diverse. We try to have a few people from all the departments. That e-board is who needs to, either raise their hand and say, yes, we accept this agreement, or they can very well say, no, we don't like it. Not because the city didn't work in good faith, but because the union didn't do what they were supposed to do. That's a reality we face every time. Once the city and us stop butting heads and come to an agreement, great. Now we have to sell it to our union members. And I'd rather sell it to 70 people than 30 people. But, maybe that'll work out, maybe not. We try.
So if I understand correctly, you said you do, or you almost have someone from each group representing their group, I don't know.
On our executive board, yes, we have people from the Parks Department, Streets Department, Water Department, Wastewater Department. Nobody from Traffic right now.
We have a brand new department, or brand new employees, that's why.
Our supervisor was from Traffic, and he was in the union, but he got promoted, so he's not a union member anymore. So, yes, about as diverse as we can be.
So basically, once the time window of, because you have to be, was it 6 months before you can join in?
When you're probate, you can join anytime, you start with the city, but we don't expect people to pay dues because the city has the right to say, you're not working out, we'll see you later. Once their probation period is up, then the union can say, okay, we can cover you, because now you're covered by the personnel policy and the rules within that.
So basically what they're saying is you have too many new people to have someone join at this
Kind of
current
to
time.
answer your question from earlier, why isn't there the big numbers? The city in whole has a big turnover. There's a lot of young, new employees that just haven't had the opportunity or haven't learned enough compared to the ones that have retired, where the numbers were up.
Right. And that's nationwide. When I started in business, it's very hard for me to fathom. I go to work, I'm the oldest guy there. Because just yesterday, I walked into a water plant and I worked with a whole bunch of guys who were 60 and older. I swear to God, it was just yesterday. And I'm like, what happens when all these guys retire? And that was just a reality. It happened. We had that first big public works turnover across the nation. And so, yes, we do have a lot of young people coming up. We don't have enough young people. That's another thing that one of my goals is more recruitment. Just recently, we've hired some really promising young people, and it's hard to attract 20-somethings to public works. It's just, to be a public servant, it's hard. I was raised in it, so it wasn't that hard for me, but for a lot of people, the grass is greener at, Schweitzer or the oil field in North Dakota. there's a lot of realities. I trained 9 operators in 7 years back in Wyoming, and they all left for the oil field. That was just a reality. So yeah, I mean, as people get older, I like to think that people start thinking about being a union member about the time they hit 30. Usually, you know, they're married and the kids are there. Not everybody, but, you know, your 20s are gone. That quick money, that instant gratification. You start to think about things like retirement, and you know, maybe you've had a health scare at 30, and boy, it sure is nice to have, you know, some insurance and things like that. So, I see the union growing, and of course, it always tends to grow around negotiation time, and then we had pretty good numbers last year. I think 6 people retired since last negotiations. 6 good employees. I mean, they were great employees, and they have retired. So I think we have 8 new people now in the last 3 weeks. So from my perspective, that's very good. Anything else?
I'd just make a comment, obviously looking in the crowd, I see there's a lot of your new young hires here. And I think that speaks volumes to what they want to see in their future career and what they hope to have for benefits. And obviously one day, whether they have families or going to be starting families, they're caring about that future. And so I'm glad to see that you guys showed up, and I appreciate it. It really shows that you guys are dedicated, and
Thank you for
I wanna
noting,
see
because
that.
I say the same thing. I look back and just go, wow, this is great. I mean, I hate to say it, but this is how almost every council meeting should be, because we are all invested in what you guys decide to do on a weekly basis, or a bi-weekly basis, or a monthly basis. I mean, it affects us directly. Some of us are at work, some of us finally got off work and want to be home. I know as a council member, sometimes it's hard for you guys to get to meetings at night. We understand that, but I think you can see when it's important, people tend to show up, so.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Councilor Klein?
Question. So what's to stop an employee from just asking for additions to the personnel policy? There's so many things that intertwine that are the same between the personnel policy and the agreement, to where, you know, if it's something that would benefit all the employees, it can be brought up in, you know, in meetings like this, where we're looking at the personnel policy and trying to make it better for everyone. Why does it have to be a separate union agreement? Why can't it just be part of the personnel policy and have it benefit everyone?
That's a great question. I guess in an ideal world, we wouldn't need a union. We could just bring good ideas and people would listen. That doesn't always happen. A lot of the things that do overlap between our collective bargaining agreement and the personnel policy, we specifically had them overlap word for word, because personnel policies do change. They do change over time. Change is not always bad, but it's not always good. And if we can lock in an agreement for 3 years, as written in the personnel policy at the time, that's when we have we ask for those entries to be put in word for word. Again, we don't know what the new leadership that comes in and wants to change. We don't know their agendas. So again, it's that security blanket for us at that point. I have been in a position where we could show up like this at council meetings and sometimes get people to see our side. It usually didn't work out really well. You were sort of at the whim of what the current council or the current administration wanted at the time. And so a lot of times, from every 3 years or every 2 years, when council would change, or every 4 years when mayors would change, we'd have this yo-yo effect. And I don't think that's good for anybody. I think some consistency is good. So, does that kind of answer it?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Question's okay.
right,
Ron,
thanks,
you had
guys.
a request to make.
What's that?
You had a request to make.
Oh, I would just like to introduce Laura, who's our union representative. She's made the trip here from Walla Walla, and she knows a few of the administration, but she could address the council if you guys would let her.
Well, that'd be great.
Go ahead. Come on up.
It's gonna be hard to follow you, Ron.
I
will tell you
know.
that.
You did such a good job.
I'm tired.
All right. Welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record and remember to speak up loudly and clearly, and I know you can do that.
Yes. My name is Laura Hanson. I am the ASME Council 2 rep for the Technicians Local Union 1124. I have a little statement I'd like to read, and then I'll take any questions. We are here today, or I'm here with my fellow union members to help, to ask for your support in endorsing the Technicians, am I loud enough? Local Union 1124. Continuing to recognize our union benefits the productivity and collaborative relationship between the city and the bargaining unit employees. Our collective bargaining agreement creates a clear and agreed upon set of rules and expectations for both management and employees. Consistency, transparency, and fairness in the workplace policies benefit all parties involved. Our labor contract protects both parties by formalizing an agreement that ensures compliance with labor laws, preventing potential legal issues or grievances if followed. A negotiated contract would also ensure that employees' concerns are addressed through a structured and cooperative process, fostering open communication and collaboration between the city administration and employees. We believe that working together to create and implement these standards will promote fairness and continue to enhance the quality of services provided to the residents of Lewiston, enhance recruitment of qualified staff, and reduce employee turnover. We look forward to engaging in good faith negotiations that will lead to a mutually beneficial agreement, demonstrating the city's commitment to valuing its skilled workforce. Thank you for considering this important matter. We're eager to collaborate with the city to continue the strong and positive working relationship that has been built over the last 40 years. I did make some notes and I wanted to address, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, sir, Mr. Councilmember, but you had asked about what the cost for the city, the savings of having a contract would be. If you can keep your workers here longer, not have to retrain new hires, that is a cost to the city that you could see, that you can see by not having to retrain, recruit, do all that process to just lower that turnover of employees. Any questions?
Thank you, Laura. Council members, questions? Councilor Cody?
Do you have some stats, some numbers on recruitment improvement and retention improvement?
I don't have any of those, but I can definitely get some and provide them to the council later.
That would be very
Okay.
helpful. Thank you.
Councilor Klein, do you have questions?
I don't have any questions. I do have some concerns with the agreement, if that's appropriate.
Councilor, that's appropriate. We're not going to discuss particular items, but I mean, I think it'd be appropriate to ask about how a provision of the contract works. Maybe Laura or Ryan can help us understand that. Yes.
I understand how different parts of it work. I just don't agree with them.
Okay. Would you like to share one for discussion? Maybe we can.
So one of them I have written down is for the snow removal. They get an additional 75 cents an hour for a set period of time. I feel like we get snow, a couple times a year. I still think they should be paid more for having to go out in the snow, but not all season. And the additional holiday pay that others don't get.
Okay, Councilor, these are items that I presume are in the contract today. And if you'd like, we could ask Director Province maybe to come up and just try to answer your question and then see if there's something else that we can discuss on that further. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Director Province, do you mind? Or if you want to stay up front in case we need to call on you again, you're sure welcome to.
Yeah, regarding the winter pay, that was something that we negotiated, sorry, Nikki Province, HR Director, that we negotiated last contract. And It was to offset a provision that was previously there that we wanted to ensure was correct by pay standards. You're right, we pay them for a set amount of time because we don't know when it's gonna snow. So there will be years where we pay them that benefit and they didn't do a lot of snow plowing. But I think the idea was that it could be said of the opposite as well, that we could have a lot of snow and they're only being paid that portion for that specific time. So I think that was the thought process in determining, a set period of time is when the city may usually get snow and for that specific duration. But you're correct, it could not snow very much at all and they're still receiving that additional compensation. And then the other one was was it holiday pay?
Yeah.
So yeah, the AFSCME contract currently pays double overtime on Sundays, and it pays double and sometimes even triple overtime on top of their holiday pay. So that is not the same provision as like other employees non-represented. So there is a little bit of a difference in the amount of compensation of overtime they're getting for working on a holiday. The personnel policy, we see it as you get paid your holiday pay and straight time, which gives you double time. It's my understanding the union sees it more as double time plus holiday pay is what you would receive. So it ends up for a certain amount of the time being triple pay. Does that answer your questions?
I think so. The other one was the absences paid count as hours worked. I feel like that's, if you're not working, right, then if you're not working those times, like people could take, 3 days off, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then come in and work 3 days, and then they're getting paid time and a half for their third day of work, even though they haven't worked the full 40 hours.
Yeah, that provision is specific to AFSCME and maybe even in the other two contracts, but non-represented, you would have to actually work 40 hours to receive overtime. Their union, you include, comp time, holiday pay, sick leave, vacation, floating holiday, that would all count towards your hours worked for the week. So.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mayor.
Counselor Horstman?
How, and I don't know if you know this at the top of your head, but how many people on the non-representative side actually need to work overtime? Is it very often that they're having to work overtime?
Trying to think. So I think you have, like with AFSCME, they have water plants that need a certain amount of, and then they have rotations every week where a person is on standby, where they get paid 1 hour for every 6. But there's, restrictions, they can't leave the city, they can't, drink alcohol or not be available, they have to be able to respond to a call out. Whereas your non-represented are probably, you've got your leadership people who are probably gonna work extra hours but not overtime, but the remainder of them are more administrative in nature, that they could work overtime. Your recreation could work overtime, but they're probably not gonna have like a standby process to be able to respond to emergencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just want to ensure that if we're kind of comparing the two and we're talking about fairness, that they're also being held to the same workload and standard, which obviously they're not, because they don't have to be there to keep things running. Whereas you're looking at Public Works and the gentlemen here and women, that have to be there or else things aren't working. So I just want to make sure if we're kind of trying to do that we're not looking at it as apples and oranges, but there's really some benefits for them because they're not having to work overtime very often and they don't have to be there and they don't have to be on call. And then there's the other side of the group that is required to in order to keep the city going, so.
Yeah, you're gonna have your traffic employees who are gonna have to respond to, accidents or, you're gonna have your water and wastewater employees that work at the plants and they have to be able to be on call to be able to respond if something comes up with the plant in order for it not to malfunction. Just by the nature of their job, there's certain components of it that might be different than say like an office worker who may work overtime, But it's probably not gonna be a requirement that they be available for a whole week in order to respond to an emergency.
Also the risk, because I mean, a lot of these workers have a high risk of safeties.
Yeah, they may work at night, they may respond to, yeah.
Trying to paint a picture.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director. I don't. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I don't see any further questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Klein, any?
Mr. Mayor,
No.
excuse me. As a long-term employee, I would like to voice in.
Sure, Pat, come on up.
So you board member, Vice President.
Please introduce yourself, your record for the Pat. Remember to speak loudly, clearly. Thank you.
My name is Pat Wilson. I am currently the ASME Vice President. I have 33 years of service to the city in the street department. I've got my name on several contracts, done a lot of negotiations. I'm a firm believer in the union. I believe that it's benefited the city and the employees a great lot. It makes employees feel that they have more, I feel that they have more of a voice this way than it does just coming to a meeting and then, you know, the council, management, whatever, goes and does their own thing. And, you know, I hear a lot being spoke here, once again, about the numbers. We've got, I know in my department, we've still got 2 people on probation. We haven't had a full crew for more than 6 to 8 months, and I don't know how long, probably 10 years. Because the city of Lewiston becomes a trainer. The people come here, they get their training, they get their experience. They drive 30 minutes to another town and make more money. Myself could have walked away from here during COVID and doubled my wage any day of the week. But like many of these folks that are here, we feel very dedicated to this town. So we've stayed. And I believe that over the years, we've done very well in the negotiations to keep the city covered when they are needed, keeping employees at work, keeping employees happy enough to stay. Unfortunately, like it was brought up by Ryan, younger people look at things a little different than those of us who have been here a while and realize what our parents went through scraping and trying to survive on minimum income. The contract gives them a say that is bound by more than just what the city decides to put in the personnel policy. They feel that they've got a say in helping form that, hopefully. And on to, I hear a lot about the overtime and the fairness and everything. And unfortunately, there's too much diversity in this city for everything to be fair. Myself, I worked 2 years as a seasonal before I went full-time. I have spent probably as many nighttime hours out there working, getting woke up in the middle of the night to go out and take care of stuff as I have daytime hours. And I believe that it's the dedication that you get from keeping your employees happy that will keep that going. I know that I've got to the point, I'm still working as long as I can, another 6, 8 years. And I plan on it being here. But if I can't afford to stay here, you know, I don't have a family going, but I've still got bills. And if I am woke up in the middle of the night, I don't know how many other people here get woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go set up signs because somebody crashed and stand out there in the freezing cold for 4 hours while it's being investigated, making sure that all this stuff is stood up. Snow plowing. It doesn't just take snow in this town for the citizens to be calling. Somebody sees frost. We are going out because the public calls. It is unsafe. It is our job to keep the streets safe. And I'm a firm believer in that if people are doing this, they should be compensated for it. Because if they're not, people are not going to do it. And, then what happens? The city is held a lot more liable because it was not taken care of. And like I said, I've got the 33 years, been through a lot of negotiations, and I believe it's a good deal on both sides because it does make the workers feel they've got a say and don't have to fret every year that somebody might come in and change on the council, change in management, just say, well, we don't like this personnel policy, it's out the window. So we like to feel the safety of having things under contract, written down to where it can't be just changed at a whim. I appreciate your time and your consideration. Does anybody have any questions?
Council?
Thank you for coming up and voicing your opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Just wait a minute.
Someone else that raised their hand.
Yeah, we'll take a couple more comments. We won't go a long time, but come on up, please. Yes.
I'm told I speak too loud all the time anyways, so, and too much. So I don't wanna,
Just introduce yourself.
my name's Mike Crooks. I work for the street department. Been here 25 years full-time. Too much probably. And it's been a great place to work. Best job I've ever had. I worked in the private sector, I worked in the military. I'm anywhere else, I think I'd be considered a hardcore Republican, neither here nor there. But I do believe there is very big need for unions, and its purpose is to represent the workers in an organized fashion as versus, and I don't mean this in a confrontational way, but their purpose is to represent those workers that belong to that union. And the people, the counselor, the mayor, all have their purpose. But the purpose isn't, we're a side thing of your many things. The union is for the workers. And I heard a few things criticized about fairness and stuff. I am sure that if any of the city workers out there that are non-union want to go out and get a CDL, that Jason would probably be amenable to putting them to work out there on a night when it's snowy or icy out. And in spite of somebody saying that it only snows maybe 2 times a year in Lewiston, I think they need to look at the record on that. This was a very mild winter, and it definitely snowed way more than 2 times. 75 cents an hour is, what are we talking about? 3% of somebody's wage to be on call every night? Ready to go. Out you go. It's snowing. Ice. Don't care what you got, man. We need you. And our guys respond to that. So, also, I've heard mentioned several times that whatever the union gets in the contract, the city tends to match that for the rest of the personnel. Well, if we're asking for unreasonable things, why? You say it's just out of fairness, but would we even have to negotiate for those things in the first place? So anyways, I think the union should be a good deal for the city also, because if you guys have an issue with something, anything that you want to change, you only have to negotiate with the union. You don't have to sit there and bicker with a bunch of employees sitting there arguing about what they like or don't want or anything. They put their requests in to their union rep, the negotiations come up, and either the city and the union come to an agreement on it, or it's left out of the agreement. That nobody's like holding a gun to anybody's head here or anything. So, but that just makes it easier, I think, for you guys. I have heard before from the city councilor that they needed to match what the union did just to make it appear that the union was unnecessary. So I really think that that's a mistake to take that attitude. Union is what these guys got. I've been here through former city managers that were here that had a death wish for the unions in town. And it wasn't very pretty, but at least, you know, we did have the union to fall back on in that case. And I agree that we need that as employees, because we never know what the political whim of the day is gonna be when our jobs are being affected. So anyways, I hope that I haven't wasted your time. If you have any questions for me, otherwise go sit down, shut up.
Thank you, Mike. Council members, questions for Mr. Crooks?
Again, thanks for coming up and voicing your opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kim,
Hey, Stan.
Kim Bingman,
I'm gonna try to keep it brief.
in the flesh. Okay, well, welcome. Please
Thanks,
introduce
Dan.
yourself for the record.
Kim Bingman, former City of Lewiston employee in the union for 30 years, negotiated several contracts. I just want to touch on some history between the union and the city. When I started in '86, there was no boot allowance. But it was required you had steel-toe boots. They were paying out of their own pockets for those things. We negotiated a contract to get them $50 to pay for those boots. Then we had an orange allowance that come in. They wouldn't provide orange. The city would not provide orange for these guys working in the streets. We negotiated that into the contract. They got a $100 allotment every year, and I think it's changed since then. The city is more providing, but there was never anything like that. Working in the fleet services, we didn't have any winter wear. We're out laying underneath the snowplows and stuff, and that's all stuff we negotiated and got. So the reason for the union is to get safety and things that are needed. And now we look at it and we say, well, it's no big deal. They're all wearing orange. They all got yellow on. Yeah, that's negotiations we put together with the city and with the union. That's why the union needs to be here. Thank you.
I actually do have a question
Oh, Kim,
on this one.
will you stand for a question? Kim?
Yeah.
All right, I'll stand for a question.
So
Counselor.
with, you said back in the 80s, correct? At that time, was it difficult to negotiate just with the city in general? Like you weren't, your voices weren't being heard to get these
Voices were
equipment?
not being heard. City managers, there's good ones, there's bad ones, like mayors, there's good ones and bad ones. And certain things just didn't work. How many times we informational picketed around City Hall to negotiate a contract down there? I mean, we spent nights down there walking around City Hall to let them know, hey, we want to settle this contract and stuff up. But yeah, all those things you see in there were negotiated years ago. And they've grown. Boot allowances, $175. I remember it was $50, you know. You get a pretty good pair of boots then. Can't anymore.
The orange allowance was the one that just blew me away. Why would we not put the guys out in the public in something that could be seen? That's something we negotiated with the city and got that. And when it started out, it was only for the street department. It didn't affect water and wastewater or the traffic. It was only for the street personnel is where that started out. And we got it pushed out into the other departments. Negotiations is important for you, it's important for these guys. And when that sewer backs up or that water blows out, you need to know these guys are gonna be there. If you don't have a contract, you're guessing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't we see if there's any last minute members of the union that would like to address the council? If not, we're going to recess. Well, we're not going to recess. We're going to go at ease and go into executive session. So is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
I have a quick question, Mayor.
I have two.
My name is Seth Williamson.
Got to have you come up front. Thank you.
My name is Seth Williamson. I've only been working here a couple weeks. I'm not a member of the union yet. I'd like to know where the union dues go. I'd like to know what they go to pay for and what the actual monthly payment goes
Repeat that.
to.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I'd like to know what the dues go to pay for in the union. I'd like to know where the money ends up and what it pays for, whether it pays for a rep or whether it pays for legal fees, or what does the money actually go to?
Okay, well, that's a good question, probably for the council too. Nikki, are you able to help us, or should I ask?
Nikki Province, HR Director. So the city in itself, we just collect the union dues and we send them to WCCE. And so Laura would probably be able to speak on what they do with the funds, but the city doesn't keep or do anything with those funds. We just do it through our payroll deduction.
All right, thank you, Nikki. Laura, do you have an answer for us? And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself every time you come up, please.
Laura Hanson, ASME Council 2 rep. So there's internal structure, part of the dues, it's a percentage capped out at a rate that's established at our conferences we have every 2 year. We are on a 2-year budget cycle. A portion of the dues go to ASME International, which is the union we're affiliated with. A portion of the dues go to Council 2 to help pay for the resources, staff rep, our attorney, et cetera. And then a portion of the dues do go back to the local itself, and it's upon the local and their membership and their leadership on how they spend those funds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Mr. Mayor, can I add to that?
Brian, please, you have to stand up so we have to have you introduce yourself for the record because it's
That's
taped
fine.
up here and they need to be able to hear you.
Ryan
Otherwise, they
Ryan,
come
still
talk to me.
council president, or sorry, not council president, union president. I will be council president one day. No, so Laura covered the union dues on the union end. When we say union, we want you guys to think of us. We say union, we think of ASME, all right? The national union, or even just our state union. So I don't have the checkbook in front of me. Our treasurer is in training in Boise right now. But we, as a local union, to address your question specifically, and questions of a lot of other people who either think about pay dues or do pay dues and don't know, our bank account reflects about $10,000 at all times. What do we spend that money on? I could have a home office to be president. I could, I don't. I could travel to Washington DC yearly with Laura. She always asks me to. I don't. I could travel to Seattle. I don't do that. We aren't that big of a union. And Laura handles our business really very well for us. Our money right now, to be honest with you, a couple times a year, we have a union meeting. We provide some pizza for our members. Not all meetings. Matter of fact, we probably should do that more often, but we don't. We're pretty frugal. But we do on a regular basis in times of need. I don't have the checkbook, but we just used this as an example a few months ago. Last year, and on a regular basis, we give to YWCA. We give to Toys for Tots. We had an employee who lost his home up in Julietta. and the fires last year, a non-dues paying employee. Yeah, we don't have a lot of money, but we gave him some money, helped with the hotel, helped with some food. We've had people with, some childbirth issues that we've helped out in the past. The money we spend is really, we don't spend it on us. We do try to distribute in the community. I know police and fire, as well as the rest of the unions with here in the valley, are on that same page. When unions give, we sort of give as one large unit. We all give individually. Obviously, the Mills Union probably has a little more cash on hand than we do. But the unions here in this valley, in this area, are very community oriented. It usually goes without fanfare, which is fine. But to answer employees' questions, that's where our money is usually, our local money is usually spent. It's in helping employees, or helping local causes. I don't have the facts and figures, but I can certainly get them if you want, because it's a real thing and we do it every year. We don't always give to people because their houses burned down. That's a tragedy that we hope we don't have to do that for a number of years down the road. But it was a reality last year for sure. You guys probably remember the Great Danes. Remember that story a few years ago? We got hold of that. Actually, the union got together. I think I was out of town, or I can't remember where I was. They got together, the e-board, they agreed on it, and the check was written before I even knew what we were giving to. As a dog guy, I was like, cool, we should have gave them more, but we can't give everybody everything. So that's where our local money goes. It doesn't go to keggers and it doesn't go to parties. So.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You raised your hand back there, sir. If you'd like to come up, and that'll be the last one, and then we're gonna get into our executive session. Please introduce yourself for the record. The floor is yours. Thank you.
I'm Brandon Guzman. I've only been with the city for about 8 months, so I'm just coming out of my probation period. I just want to let you guys know why I'm joining the union. And I work in wastewater, so my examples are going to be towards wastewater, but just something as simple as the boot allowance goes a long ways. Just some of the guys I work with, we deal with whatever comes down the toilet. What we stand in, what we have to hose in. If you get a nice pair of boots that you just bought yourself out of your own pocket and have to come to work, you dirty them all up. You can't go home to your kids with those boots on. And so another pair of boots is devastating. I have 3 kids. I can't afford a pair of boots every week because I washed fecal matter off my boots that day and I can't wear them back home. Same with Christmas, the holiday pay. I worked Christmas this last Christmas, my first time away from my kids on Christmas, 10, 7, 6-year-old. And if I would have said no, I would have forced another coworker to take that place. So in order to get compensation for those holidays, it makes a big difference. I could take that time away from my family to make sure that my coworkers got time with their family. And I'd like to think that they would do it the following year or so on. So just the union and having this contract in place is security reasons, like Ryan had said before. We need this in place so that just those little things that make our lives easier makes our lives easier.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to say thank you, Laura and Ryan, and all of the members that are here today, some of the other union reps that are here for showing up today. It was very valuable for me, I can tell you that, and I just appreciate the information that you shared, your positions, and it's I think going to be helpful for the council too when they have to make their deliberations and decisions. So I anticipate, we'll take this back up on Monday night, and that's when they'll be asked to make a decision, and then depending on the outcome of that, then we would begin contacting Laura and Ryan and others after that. But we are going to disappear into that back room for a little bit. And again, I just want to say thank you for being here and sharing part of your day with us. It's very important to me as well that you're here today. So thank you. And with that, council, I'm going to put us at ease to go into executive session.
These are my letters for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council.
Thank you. I just wanted to double check to make sure it's here.